Everyone thinks you need 1,000-euro pigeons to win races. The champions are born in luxury lofts with famous bloodlines and massive price tags. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Most top lofts won't tell you. Many champions didn't start expensive at all. Some of the most legendary pigeons in history began life in modest lofts, raised by hobbyists who could never have imagined their birds would go on to break records. So the real question is this: can you actually breed a champion from cheap pigeons? Or is that just a myth? The answer isn't simple, but it's far more interesting than you might think. When we say cheap pigeons, we're not talking about bad pigeons. We're talking about pigeons without hype-local birds, club-level racers, birds without famous names in the pedigree, and those that didn't come from flashy auctions or big-money sales. Cheap often just means unknown, not untalented. In fact, many of these so-called cheap pigeons carry genetic traits that expensive birds might lack. They may have superior endurance, unmatched homing instincts, or just raw determination that no auctioneer could ever price. Too often, people confuse price with potential, and that's where they go wrong. A pigeon doesn't know its price tag. Genetics work the same whether a bird cost 50 euros or 50,000. What actually matters is performance. If a pigeon consistently beats others in tough conditions through rain, wind, or extreme distances, that ability is genetic, and genetics can be passed on. Many legendary bloodlines started from birds that were once considered average or even unwanted. Take the example of some Jansen or Koopman pigeons. Their ancestors were simple, unremarkable club racers before years of careful selection turned them into champions, whose offspring would sell for tens of thousands of euros. The point is, a bird's starting price tells you almost nothing about its potential. Pedigrees look impressive on paper, but racing happens in the sky, not on paper. A cheap pigeon that finishes near the top week after week is worth far more than an expensive pigeon that never performs. Top breeders don't buy pigeons to impress others. They study race results, consistency, and resilience. Performance is the only true proof. And here's something most beginners don't realize. A bird that consistently performs under pressure is often more valuable than a pigeon from a famous bloodline that only occasionally wins. This is because consistent performance shows reliability, endurance, and the mental toughness necessary to handle real racing conditions, traits that money can't buy. This is where most people fail. Breeding a champion from cheap pigeons requires ruthless selection. You can't just breed randomly and hope for the best. Average pigeons must be removed from the loft. Only the best performers are kept, raced again, and tested under pressure. Expensive lofts do the same thing. They just start with birds that have already passed some of those tests elsewhere, which makes it seem easier. But in reality, the process is identical. Observe, select, test, and repeat. Patience is the secret ingredient. You might breed a dozen generations before a true champion emerges. But each generation teaches you something critical about genetics, behavior, and race conditions. Even the best genetics can be wasted with poor management. Feeding, loft environment, training, health, and patience all matter. A cheap pigeon in a perfect system will outperform an expensive pigeon in a bad one every time. Many so-called bad pigeons were never given the right conditions to show their ability. Imagine a talented pigeon raised in a cramped, poorly ventilated loft without proper nutrition. It might never reach its potential. Conversely, a cheap bird raised in a carefully managed loft, trained gradually, and raced under the right conditions can outperform loft favorites. This is why the management system often matters as much, if not more, than pedigree. History is full of champions that came from modest lofts and unknown pigeons. Small breeders have beaten millionaire lofts more times than people like to admit. The difference wasn't money, it was observation, discipline, and years of careful selection. These breeders studied their pigeons relentlessly, noted which birds performed under specific conditions, and adjusted their breeding strategies accordingly. They weren't chasing fame or auctions, they were chasing results, one race at a time. And when a champion finally emerged from such modest beginnings, the story often shocked the racing world. That's why expensive pigeons still exist. They reduce risk. Buying proven genetics means you don't have to wait years to see whether a line produces winners. You're buying decades of careful selection and a higher probability of success. But a higher chance doesn't mean a guarantee. Money buys probability, not trophies. And even then, Expensive pigeons often require the same level of management, training, and attention as any cheap bird. A multi-million-euro pigeon will still fail if mishandled. Just as a 50 euros pigeon can shine if nurtured correctly, so can you breed a champion from cheap pigeons. Yes, but not quickly. It takes patience, ruthless selection, and a system that brings out the best in every bird. Champions aren't bought. They're built over years through careful observation, testing, and refinement. The lofts that dominate racing aren't always the richest. They're the ones that can identify potential where others see none and cultivate it relentlessly. If you think pigeon racing is only for the rich, you're already beaten before the race starts. True champions often come from unlikely places, and history has proven it time and time again. Subscribe to the Pigeon Files for the real stories behind champions, the secrets that top breeders don't share, and the truth most lofts won't say out loud. Because in pigeon racing, talent can come from anywhere, and sometimes the cheapest pigeon in your loft could be the next legend. If you love discovering the truth about racing pigeons, make sure to subscribe and stay with the Pigeon Files.